Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you're having a fantastic week. Look, Preterist Pilgrim Weekend begins tonight. Or am I looking at that correctly? Yes, indeed. It begins tonight. Preterist Pilgrim Weekend 2020. Our theme is the Book of Revelation. We're having a virtual seminar with a virtual book table. I am introducing a brand spanking new book this year, which is Watching for the Parousia, where Jesus' apostles confused. Very, very special introductory price and great discounts on books and all of the material that we offer. All right, here we are on Thursday. And don't forget, as promised, tomorrow on Friday, I'm going to do a review of Dr. James White's review of the recent Frost-Preston debate. Back in May of 2020, Sam Frost, a former preterist, and I had a 3-night formal radio debate on the Chris Arnzen radio program. It's aired internationally, and for 2 nights, each of us had an affirmative. I affirmed on the very first night that the second coming of Christ occurred in AD 70. On the second night, Sam Frost affirmed a physical resurrection will yet occur. On the third night, a week later, then we had a call-in program of 2 hours in which listeners just simply called in and asked their questions. And so in the time following that debate, James White, who is himself a very noted debater, he has done some really good apologetic work, and I appreciate that which he has done. By the way, Dr. White has been challenged numerous times to debate me in formal public debate, either at a venue or on YouTube. William Bell and I would be more than happy to host a 4-hour debate on Two Guys in a Bible on Fulfilled Radio. We have no commercial breaks. You know, that was one of the problems with the debate that we had, that Sam and I had on the Chris Arnzen show, because there were so many commercial breaks. It kind of broke up the continuity. But if Dr. White is willing, we can have either a 2-hour or a 4-hour straight debate. All right? William Bell will be the moderator. Each man will be allotted the exact same amount of time, and we can discuss the issues. And I understand that Dr. White has never debated eschatology, but I also understand that he's recently gotten hooked up with Jeff Durbin, who is active in studying and writing and discussing eschatology. So perhaps, as I would suggest, it's time. Mike Sullivan and I have urged the two of them to meet us in formal public debate. So hopefully that will take place. But nonetheless, Dr. White did a review of the debate between Sam Frost and myself. So tomorrow, as promised, I'm going to give a response to Dr. White's review of the Frost versus Preston debate. You don't want to miss it. I guarantee you, you don't want to miss it. All right. Well, back to Matthew chapter 24, verse 37 and following. As we have been discussing how it is assumed that the apostles were asking Jesus about the end of the current Christian age, the end of time, at his coming as a 5'5" Jewish man, versus the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. So supposedly, Jesus talked about two different subjects in Matthew chapter 24, and verse 36 is the linchpin based upon that false assumption, because Jesus said, but of that day and hour. Now, in this verse, he supposedly shifts from the event that was supposed to take place in the first century to the event that's supposed to take place in your future and mine at the so-called end of time. And so this is a little bit of a reiteration, well, not reiteration because I didn't cover this in that discussion, but I want to go back and look at verse 36 one more time, all right? Bear with me. Jesus said, but of that day and hour. knows no man. And then, of course, he goes ahead down in the later verses, and he talks about, if you do not watch, I will come upon you as a thief in the night. Well, you see, we are told right there is absolute definitive proof that he had to be talking about something different from the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. Well, wait a minute. He said, if you don't watch, my coming will be like a thief. I'll have more to say about that as we continue. But I want you to go with me to Revelation chapter 3. In Revelation chapter 3, 1 and following, Jesus addressed the church at Sardis. That is a church that existed in the first century, no doubt about it. And Jesus says, to the angel of the church in Sardis, write, these things says he who has the seven spirits of God and the seven stars, I know your works, that you have a name, that you are alive, but you are dead. Wow, they were dead. I think it's safe to say they were not biologically dead, since Jesus is speaking to them, right? So we go on. Be watchful. What are they supposed to watch for if there's nothing to watch for? Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die, for I have not found your works perfect before God. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard, hold fast and repent. Therefore, if you will not watch, now remember, if there's nothing to watch for, then how could they watch for it? But watch this. If you will not watch, I will come upon you as a thief. Now again, we'll be talking about the thief coming later on, but notice what he says. You will not know what hour I will come upon you. So here's Jesus speaking to a first century church, and he says, if you will not watch, if you will not watch, I will come upon you as a thief. And people tell us, well, you see, the thief comes unannounced, unknown. That's not like the fall of Jerusalem, for which they had signs. Wait a minute. Jesus is telling these people they could watch and they could know. Remember what he said in Matthew 24:32? Therefore, when you see all these things, then know that it is near, even at the door. So if they're not watching, and if they're not believing, then they're not knowing. And if they're not knowing, then they're not prepared. And in next week's video, I'll show you, on Monday, I will show you how that conflates perfectly with 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. You see, the key here is not that there were no signs to watch for, but rather there were, and he was urging them to watch for them, because once again, I'm sorry to be repetitious, if there's nothing to watch for, then you can't watch for it. I'm sorry, just doesn't make sense. So, notice that Jesus said to a first century church, if you will not watch, you will not know what day and hour, or what hour I'm coming upon you. But who's he going to come to? Them. The first century church. Do you remember? Just this week I pointed out how the adversaries of covenant eschatology, they go to Luke chapter 17, verse 22, in which Jesus said, the time is coming in which you will desire to see one of the days of the coming of one of the days of the Son of Man, but you will not see it. And we're told, see, he was talking to his first century apostles, telling them they would not see him coming. Okay, that's honoring the personal pronouns. And that's saying his apostles, first century apostles, would not see it. Well, of course, I demonstrated that's not what he was saying. But nonetheless, that argument is honoring the audience relevance of you will not see. Well, now in Revelation chapter 3, if you will not watch, I will come upon you. Should we not honor that you, which would demand that Jesus was coming as a thief in the first century? If not, why not? All right. I'm out of time for today. I hope that you can see how inconsistent the arguments are when people go to Matthew chapter 24 and based upon their false assumption that the apostles were confused or ignorant, they then impose onto the Olivet Discourse an entire framework of exegesis, which is not exegesis, it is eisegesis, and they come up with this divided, confusing and confused interpretation. Don't forget, being introduced this weekend, July 9th through the 11th, 2020, my brand new book, Watching for the Parousia, Were Jesus' Apostles Confused? All right? Free shipping on it when you purchase it. All right? Thanks so much for joining me. Don't forget, I'll see you tomorrow in our review of Dr. James White's review of the Frost versus Preston debate. I will see you on the flip side.